Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello everyone, fifth group here. Today we are going to present about discourse and society. Our group's members are Dora Yanti and me, Nabila Tasha. Discourse and gender. Gender is not just a natural and sequence of the one sex, but it is part of the routine, that ongoing work of everyday social interaction that is the product of social practice. Gender is not a result of who people already are, but a result of, among other things, the way they think and the way they talk and what they do. So, gender is a complex construction. It involves all the level of the language and discourse. They include aspects of nonverbal behavior, social class ethnicity, and context. Discourse and gender refers to the examinations of the study of how language communication and discourse itself shape and influence the understanding of the gender roles, identities, and power dynamics. So it involves the critically analyzing the language, narratives, and representations surrounding gender in various contexts, such as media, literature, politics, and everyday interaction. Through discourse and gender analysis, we aim to uncover how language construct and reinforces societal norms, stereotypes, and expectations related to the gender. So, discourse and gender analysis it also helps in identifying the ways in which gender intersects with other social categories such as race, class, sexuality, and ability. So, in discourse and gender, there is the term in the book of the Language and Women's Place of 1975 that it refers to the natural language. So, what is natural language? Natural language in discourse and gender refers to the language that avoids reference towards a particular sex or gender. So, it is the talking way about people without assuming their gender. So, gender natural language includes some indicates like the use of the pronouns instead of using gendered pronouns like he or she. Use gender natural pronouns like they or them. Then, for example, instead of saying he or she, we can say they. Second, job titles. Instead of using gendered job titles like fireman or policeman, use gender natural job titles like firefighter or police officer. Then, instead of using gendered collective nouns such chairman or mankind, use the gender natural collective such humanity or chairperson. Furthermore, instead of using gender descriptive terms like waiters, use general natural descriptive terms like server. So, in this case, discourse and gender. In gender natural language, in discourse is important because it demonstrates respect for people, all backgrounds, genders, and beliefs, that it includes everyone in conversation. Gender affects also language use in discourse in several ways. Some of the ways in which gender affects language use in discourse are: first, power dynamics. The power Gender can affect the power dynamics in discourse. For example, men may use language to assert their dominance over the women, while women may use language to build a relationship and create the connection. The second, speech styles. Gender can also affect speech styles. For example, women may use more direct questions, pages, while men may use more direct and assertive language. Third, stereotypes. Gender stereotypes can also affect language use in discourse. For example, women may be expected to use more emotional language, while men may be expected to use more rational language. Fourth, social roles. Gender can also affect language use in relation to social roles. For example, women may be expected to use more polite language, while men may be expected to be used more aggressive language. The last one, in the context of the culture, gender can also affect the impact language use in different cultures. For example, a study of Malagasy-speaking people revealed that women's speech was more direct in that culture. So while the man's speech was more roundabout. Overall, gender affects language use in discourse in complex. The study of discourse and gender is important because it helps us understand how language reflects and reinforces gender identity and social roles. In some cases, the dominance and difference approach to language and gender points that language is reflection of the man's domination over the women. And some cases there's a few that women's language reflects their subordinate position in society and proceeds to keep them in that position. And this view also furthermore, there is a view from Tennis 1990. You just don't understand. It is the example of different approach where boys and girls live in different subcultures. They lead to different way of using language and communicating with people from different subcultures group. However, some other researchers argue that this distinction to simplify, so that power and subculture factors are not in either or relationship. When we talk about the gender, power, and subcultures. There is a result from uh, Uchida and Lakoff 1919 that indicated that dominance and difference work together to between men and women. It refers to the construct of the gender. They argue that the expression of the gender and the power are always contact physics and need to be understood in relationship to a person speaking to their position and the purpose of the interaction. So when we look back from different perspectives, a few of the gender and discourse that looks at how people in particular social and subculture interaction do gender through their use of the language is needed. Okay. So furthermore, we look back from the gender. Gender is not something a person has, but something that a person does. The gender is not the result of who people are, but a result of, among other things, and the way they talk and what they do. So the gender doesn't just exist, but it continually reproduced, and indeed changed through the people's performance of the gendered act. So from this relation to this, there is also a gender identity that is complex construction. So the level of language and discourse, as well as other aspect of the nonverbal and other kinds of the behavior, are involved in doing gender. So the gender, with other factors such as social class and ethnicity, it is related. Then we go to the second section. It is about discourse and sexuality. So the relationship between language and sexuality further complicates the topic of the gender and discourse by adding the notion of desire. So while gender is something that socially constructed, sexuality has a much more unconscious basis based in the notion of desire, that is a person's intimate desire for connection to others that exceeds their conscious control. So a person may, however, perform a certain identity in their conversation of the language. And talking about the language and sexuality, then it makes us to be on discuss of language, gender, and into the world of the language and desire. So this desire are not simply private. So the internal phenomena that are produced and expressed or not expressed in social interaction using shared and conventionalized linguistic resources. Yeah. I think that's all from my part. Let's go to the next section. It will be presented by my partner Dorayati.
Hello everyone, my name is Dorayati. So now I am going to continue the explanation. There are main points here. They are discourse and identity, and discourse and ideology. We will start from discourse and identity. They may have an identity as a woman, an identity as a mother, an identity as someone's partner, and an identity as an office worker. For example, the ways in which people display their identities includes the way they use language and the way they interact with people. Identities are not natural. However, they are constructed in large part through the use of discourse identity. Further, is not something that is fixed and remains the same throughout a person's life. Certain identity is that it is recognized by other people. Identity, thus, is a two-way construction. Swan et al. 2004 arguing that it is through language, or rather through discourse, that identity is principally forged. The information a person gives off about themselves and in turn their identity depends very much on the context, occasion, and purpose of the discourse. Thomas 2004 has explored the issue of language and identity in online chat environments, a very particular place and space, with a focus on adolescent cybergirls. She examines how girls use words and image to establish online identities which reflect both their fantasies and their desires in this particular setting. She does an analysis of both the words and the image that they use to create their identities. In their online environment, the cybergirls interacted with words, symbols for words, as well as various other symbols such as emoticons and visual characters which express a certain identity in order to establish their online identities. There are two discussions about identity. The first one is identity and casual conversation, and the second one is identity and written academic discourse. Let's discuss one by one. First, identity and casual conversation. Despite its sometimes aimless appearance and apparently trivial content, casual conversation is in fact a highly structured, functionally motivated, semantic activity motivated by interpersonal needs continually to establish who we are, how we relate to others, and what we think of how the world is. Casual conversation is a critical linguistic site for the negotiation of such important dimension of our social identity as gender, generational location, sexuality, social class membership, ethnicity, and sub-cultural and group affiliations. Higgins and Slade, 1997, they describe this as the central paradox of casual conversation. As they argue, casual conversation is the type of threshold in which people feel most relaxed, most spontaneous, and most themselves. Yet, casual conversation is a critical site for the social construction of reality. Casual conversation do a number of things which are crucial to discussions of language and identity. They establish solidarity through the confirmation of similarities, and they assert autonomy through the exploration of differences. The way in which language is used in casual conversations, like all spoken interaction, is influenced by the relation between the people speaking, the frequency with which they come into contact with each other, the degree of involvement they have with each other, and their sense of affiliation for each other. The next one is about speech and identity construction. When we speak or write, then we are telling other people something about ourselves. Cameron 2001, and relating to people in particular ways. Identity thus is a joint two-way production. Identity, further, is not just a matter of using language in a way that reflects a particular identity. It is rather a socially constructed self that people continually co-construct and reconstruct in their interaction with each other. This leads to different ways of doing identity with different people in different situations. Alright, let's continue to the next discussion. It's about identity and written academic discourse. This is particularly the case in students' academic writing. Thailand 2002 discussed the view that is often presented to students that academic writing is faceless personal discourse. Academic writing aims at objective in its expression of ideas and tries to avoid specific reference to personal opinions like first-person pronouns. For example, I believe, or it is my opinion. Establishing writer identity. The process of creating a number identity is very difficult for a second language student. So, they bring a different writer voice from their native language setting to the second language situation. Teachers need to know about the way students present themselves in their first language. Then, help them with issues of identity in second language writing. Let's continue to the next discussion. It's about discourse and ideology. Ideology is a set of beliefs and values held by an individual or a group of people so that a certain group can have certain beliefs and ideology shape the action of society. The interaction of thought, which in turn shape the process of society. When someone has an ideology, they want to always remember that ideology in their behavior, and they need to spread this ideology to others. Persuading others when discussing music, there is something in music that is clear beyond the language itself. When you find the lyrics of the music, you try to understand and translate the language in the lyrics. You get just about understanding the meaning. Then, when you listen to real music with composition, the sound and arrangement of the instruments, and also you listen to the joy that involves your feelings in it, you will find that there is something more than just understanding the translation of the lyrics. So that means there is something behind the music, is something deeper than music, which is more than just a language, which might bring to a certain memory, which might also be able to change beliefs and ideology related to ideology and also discourse. Language is never natural because language depends on one's thought, and language depends on one's feeling or hurt. Language is used socially to convey historical meaning, which is determined by the social conditions by whom it is used. Use it and under what condition language can be never natural because it violates our personal and social world. So that if you look at this picture, discourse and ideology are human thought and communication that are interrelated, so that the resulting choice of language by someone depending on their intention, what type of communication is used by the author to convey their thought. Ideology can change discourse, including how a person's ideology influences the way they speak and write. Also, in various contexts in both public and private discourse. So you will find that a similar idea might be conveyed differently by someone speaking either publicly or privately, such as when someone wants to borrow some money in front of someone. So one-on-one, they will speak frankly, but when someone talks about borrowing some money in public, they will use a different language. So the meaning of this really depends on the context, depending on the purpose and function, to understand more deeply about how ideology can be transferred into a discourse. So guys, welcome to the last part, is about conclusion. This chapter has looked at discourse analysis from a number of social and other perspectives. It has introduced several notions that are important for discussion of language from a discourse perspective. It has also aimed to show how some of these notions have changed since they were first introduced, such as language and gender and language and identity, and how these notions are currently used in discussions of the use of spoken and written discourse. The chapter which follows looks at discourse from a pragmatics perspective and provides further detail on how language does what it does and means more than it says in the context of our day-to-day communication. Well guys, we think that's all for our group presentation today. Thanks for your great attention.